Welcome back to the Inner Circle Show. In today's episode, I want to discuss the upcoming Palantir earnings and my thoughts going into them. And I'll leave all timestamps in the description below. But before we get into that, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications on so you do not miss an upload Monday through Friday. So Palantir's Q2 earnings will be reported on Monday the 5th of August after the market closes. And they will be reporting the results for their second quarter of 2024, which ended on June the 30th. Now firstly, every time earnings rolls around, there's always some sort of discussion, some sort of conversation as to whether or not the fact that they're reporting them pre-market or post-market holds any significance. Does it make a difference? In my opinion, no, not really. I personally don't look into this very much at all. So this time around, they're reporting them post-market in Q1, they reported them post-market in Q4, it was post-market in Q3, it was pre-market, and then in Q2, it was post-market. So it seems like more often than not, they decide to report their earnings post-market, but there doesn't really seem to be that much of a strong correlation between when they report them and how well they actually do in those reports. I suppose that you could argue that if a company was expecting very poor results, they would opt to actually report those results post-market in order to mitigate some of the volatility that they would see around the stock and to actually buy themselves some time to, provide more information, to provide more commentary, some time for damage control. But Palantir and other companies have had many cases where they have reported post-market and they've done very, very well. So I just wouldn't look into this too much. Also, the majority of the past, however many earnings, have been very, very strong. Most of them have beat expectations. But this hasn't always meant that the stock price has gone up as a result of this. Sometimes, in fact, they've had very good earnings and the stock has gone down. But basically, what we can expect to see is a lot of volatility around earnings, especially around earnings of a company like Palantir. So I'm going to talk about what I'm looking for and what I'm expecting in the earnings coming out very shortly. But first, let's just rewind to the past and think about the Q1 earnings that came out on May the 6th. They did really well. They beat EPS and revenue estimates, and they showed their 6th consecutive quarter of GAAP profitability. They earned $106 million, which was their largest single quarter of profit in their entire 20-year history. They grew their total revenue by 21% year over year, and the US commercial revenue in particular grew at 40%. Year over year. Their Rule of 40 came in at 57%, which was incredibly impressive, and they made a point of actually including this on their presentation, which I don't think they have in the past, so it'll be interesting to see whether or not they include it this time round. I really hope they do, but there were also many other highlights. And there'll be a lot of eyes on Palantir this time around on whether or not they can keep up with this impressive momentum. Currently, Palantir stock is priced at $26.37 per share, and it has increased by 32.91% in a 1-year period. And in 6 months alone, it's up by 63.89%. So I think it's very fair to say that future growth is priced in and very much expected, which makes sense because Palantir have been doing a lot of things right. They've got a very good management team. All the numbers, all the metrics are trending in the right direction. They're going to the right and they're going up. They've seen great success when it comes to demand, especially for AIP, and of course they've had amazing success with the AIP bootcamps, which has really lowered the barrier to entry, which was a crucial thing for Palantir to solve to actually make their sales funnel a whole lot more effective. And a lot of people, whether this is institutional fund managers, whether this is Wall Street analysts, whether this is CEOs at massive organizations, whether this is leaders of government organizations, and retail investors, a lot of people are now waking up to how useful Palantir can actually be across many different sectors, and they are really truly at the forefront of AI, especially when we think about useful real-world AI applications. Investors have high hopes for the company's future earnings, the revenue, the overall success. So any deviation away from that, if these earnings come in slightly lower than expected, that could cause significant volatility in the stock. If there isn't top line and bottom line beats across the board, and if we don't see optimistic guidance, which I'll speak about a bit later on in the video, we could definitely expect to see the stock price fall, especially in the short term. And whether that falls by 3%, 5%, 15%, Who knows? Obviously, there's also somewhat of a resistance level at $30 due to a lot of call options, I guess. And if the earnings are very bullish, there could also be a short squeeze. So a lot of things to be thinking about. Personally, I'm emphasizing the long-term perspective, as I always do. I am focusing on the broader growth trajectory, the fundamental growth and the fundamental value that I see within Palantir, rather than thinking too much about short-term fluctuations due to just one single quarter of results. I have significant trust in Palantir's management team. I think they've been doing an amazing job, and I really, really believe in their ability to steer and direct the company towards long-term success and long-term growth. I think they will continue to be very, very innovative, and I think they will strategically pivot the company as necessary depending on what's going on in the world. And going into these earnings, I very much believe at this point that the underlying fundamentals and the future growth prospects of Palantir are very strong and they justify my investment. If this changes, I will reconsider. But right now, I am more bullish than ever. But basically, you can expect some volatility, and it is crucial to have a plan going into these earnings, or going into any earnings actually. So now let's talk about what I'm expecting and what I'm looking for in the Q2 earnings. So firstly, revenue growth at the moment sits at 21% for Palantir year over year. And I would definitely like to see this higher. And I think we will. I think we'll definitely see this go up over time. Remember that revenue is a lagging indicator. It takes some time to show, but I would like to see this 21% revenue growth year over year to trend towards the 30%. And we've definitely had some big contracts that could really help with this, especially on the government side, which we should start to see, but remember these take time to show up as well. Splitting this down further, they report both their US commercial revenue growth and also their total growth, which includes US commercial and international. Last time, the US commercial was at 40%, which was really, really strong, and the total was at 27% growth. Now, with the popularity of AIP bootcamps and AIP con events, which have really, really turned the company around, I do expect that the overall revenue commercial growth, it should be pretty decent. That's what we're expecting to see, I would say. And we have seen a lot of new deals, whether on the commercial side or government side, coming in outside of the US, whether these are European government organizations like in Germany maybe, or commercial organizations within the UK. We've seen these popping up, and we've also been seeing AIP bootcamps happening internationally. These seem to be becoming more and more common. So I'm not actually sure what the international commercial growth will be, but I'm very, very interested to see. Government-wise, again, we've had some big deals. For example, we've had Project Maven, and we've also had the Titan Phase 3 come in. But the thing to remember with these is that they don't always show up in a single quarter. The revenue can actually be split up across many quarters. So it's a little bit hard to predict when these are actually going to land, and we're going to see them on the earnings. And at the moment, I would say that the international government revenue is quite low, but it will definitely increase. The way that the world is right now really, really calls, especially in the West, for Palantir's solutions, for Palantir's software. And maybe we should expect to see that governments across the world will be looking to actually seek how they can utilize technology and especially artificial intelligence across government organizations. So I think we will see this start to increase, and we've actually seen a couple of deals come in recently, but again, this does not show up straight away. Revenue is a lagging indicator. They guided for a revenue of between $649 million and $653 million for the second quarter in 2024. This would actually equate to a year-over-year revenue growth of 22.51% if you're using the reported revenue of $533 million in Q2 2024 that Palantir had, to the expected upper end of $653 million expected by Palantir for this report. And if they achieve this, this would be pretty decent, because this is an increase from the 21% revenue growth year over year that we've just seen. Obviously, I am very much looking for and very much expecting to see Palantir announce that they have had the 7th quarter of GAAP profitability, because this is absolutely essential for their S&P 500 inclusion. And by the way, I think the next time that we'll hear about whether or not Palantir is going to be included in the index is around September. Now, Palantir had just short of $4 billion in cash equivalent and treasuries with no debt. So this is a incredibly strong position for Palantir to be in, and they are generating a lot of this from interest. And this really does help to minimize the risk of them going bankrupt, and it also allows them to be very flexible in terms of strategic investments and future growth opportunities that they may have. Now, I expect this to continue to be a good metric for Palantir this time around as well. I'd like to see the net dollar retention stay above 110%. In Q1, it was 111%, and this shows us that the value that Palantir are offering their existing customer base is really good. They have strong customer retention. As we know, we hear about this all the time. They are really able to retain customers because of the value that they are giving those customers and the lack of other options, out elsewhere in the market for these customers to get as good as a solution that Palantir can offer. And they're able to keep these customers and then grow revenue from the existing clients. So, I would really like to see this come in at, 112% to see continued growth there. But anything above 110, I'll be pretty happy. Moving on to customer count. Again, this is very, very important. And obviously it goes without saying that I would like to see this continue to increase. I'd like to see Palantir showing that they are able to bring more customers in, which they should be, considering the success that they are showing us from the AIP bootcamps. Because like I said earlier on in the video, they have solved this issue with getting customers in the door now, and they are offering all these different things. We should expect to see the customer count grow, and then we should expect these customers to stay with Palantir and actually look for new opportunities, new ways that they can utilize Palantir continually going forward. And we're already seeing this. We're seeing organizations that have been with Palantir for a while that maybe have had Foundry access, and now they're expanding their contracts and actually wanting access to AIP, for example. We're seeing this coming up a lot. And it's always going to be really good to actually get some information about how the AIP bootcamps are converting. Are they converting well? Are the conversion rates good? So talking about guidance, this is going to be the thing that is probably the most important and maybe has the most impact to the stock after the earnings come out. The question really is, can they give optimistic guidance once again? What are Palantir themselves expecting for Q3 2024 and for the rest of the year? I anticipate that guidance will be driven by the fact that the world is in a bit of a mess right now, and Karp and the rest of the team are probably already seeing the conversations happening as to how Palantir can be used on the government defense side, and it already is. And also the fact that artificial intelligence is a growing thing for commercial and non-commercial organizations as well. The fact that the amount of money organizations are spending on AI is increasing dramatically, and Karp is one of the people that thinks this will increase more and more and more as time goes on. We can probably expect bullish, optimistic guidance moving forward. But like I said, this will be a big thing. A lot of people will be paying attention to this. I'll obviously be doing a video talking about the earnings and summarizing them after they've come out, but I thought it'd be interesting now to have a look at some of the submitted questions for these earnings. So during the earnings call, some of the questions that have been submitted, mainly the top voted questions or the ones with the most shares behind them, get put forward to the CEO or whoever. So let's just have a look at the ones that have been submitted for Palantir. We're going to filter this by, it already is, filter this by top voted. So the top voted question is, when can we expect exponential growth? This question makes me laugh because wouldn't we all like to know? If we all knew when to expect exponential growth, we would all be very, very rich and very, very, all of us would be in a very different place. The whole point is to find a company that you think has very long-term great potential and invest into them, research heavily into them, track them, follow them, think about how they're changing the world, because you need a company that's going to make a big difference. And these things will end up leading to exponential growth. But you're never going to be able to ask this question to Alex Karp and him say, May the 10th, 2027 is when the exponential growth will start, and it will end here. So make sure you buy shares here and sell them here. But put simply, I personally think that Palantir will continue to see very, very good growth. And I think at some point they will see quicker growth. The next question is, does Palantir plan on paying shareholder dividends? I really ignore my cat's tail. He wants to be involved in the Palantir earnings, but I very much think that the answer to this right now will be not for a long time. It would not make sense at the moment for Palantir to be paying dividends, in my opinion. There are some tech companies out there that pay dividends, albeit a very small percentage, a very small yield. My cat is now getting vocal about the earnings. He is very passionate. Otto, calm down. We've got this covered. What was I saying? Yeah, some of these really mature companies pay a dividend, but they're normally a very, very small yield. But they have to pay dividends because they've got so much cash on hand. They don't really have anything else to do with it. But a company like Palantir that are still very early, they only went public not that long ago. I think that they can utilize that cash in different ways. And I don't think that they'll be looking to pay a dividend. But, maybe we'll be surprised. Who knows? What does Palantir's growth look like in the next 5 years? Again, this sort of ties in with that first one. I think it will look good because of this, and this. How do you plan to keep the growth of your company going? That's an interesting question. They've just got to keep innovating. They've got to keep having a product that is at the forefront of AI and makes a real difference. And they've got to keep sharing AIP cons, AIP boot camps, lowering the barrier to entry, showing off what their technology can do, getting their customers, they don't even pay these customers to talk about it because it's that good. And this will just expand over time. What is the company's goal by 2030? How does Palantir plan on integrating AI into their business model? Okay, interesting. And does Palantir have any immediate or near future plans to acquire additional companies or competitors? That will be very interesting, and you can see other ones here as well. Now, if we just change this to most shares, we can see some different questions. Can you give us any metrics that are directly attributable to AIP to client conversion? Do you see the rate accelerating? I would love to know the answer to that question. I believe it would be good, but yeah, we don't have that definitively answered for us at the moment. What is the most significant hurdle for Palantir in the near term, and what is the greatest opportunity? Again, that will be interesting. Look at this one. What is the plan for this company to be bigger than Apple, Nvidia, and Microsoft? Do you see this company market cap growing to be 5 trillion in 10 years? I wouldn't personally pick for some of them to be answered over others. I think there are some good questions there. I would probably shift some of those questions if it was me asking. But hey, I don't have one of the top voted questions, so I'll have to just take what I can get on that one. And hopefully we'll get some decent insights and some good commentary from Carp and the team. I have created an absolutely free to join Discord server that is going to be opened about 20 minutes before the earnings are released and closed 24 hours after the earnings have come out. And during that time, we can chat all about the earnings, what's going on, what's happening, what we're thinking about the earnings in real time with a community of people. So if that sounds interesting to you, come and join the free Discord. I will leave a link in the description below, and I'll leave it as a pinned comment as well. It will all be via Discord, so you can come and join us over there and still have other YouTubers who live stream the event on as well. So I hope to see some of you guys joining that server soon. With that said, please let me know what you're expecting and what you're thinking and feeling moving into these earnings in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in tomorrow's episode.